The FAA sounded an alarm over 5G, saying if new steps aren't taken to control transmissions, that the traveling public could be affected. Our transportation correspondent, Gio Benitez, is live at LaGuardia Airport in New York with more. Good morning, Gio.
Hey, Michael, good morning. Yeah, we're talking about the latest 5G technology to make wireless access on our phones even faster. But there's a concern, and that concern is if those towers are too close to the airport and those signals are too close, they could potentially interfere with planes and make it difficult for them to land in bad weather. Now, AT&T and Verizon, they voluntarily delayed their full rollout near airports until July, but 19 smaller carriers have not. So Reuters reporting overnight that the acting FAA administrator sent a letter to regulators saying if more action wasn't taken to delay some 5G transmissions, the FAA would be forced to take immediate steps to ensure the safety of the traveling public, raising the likelihood of flight disruptions across the United States. Now, airlines are working to change equipment on their planes because they want to avoid that 5G interference. But no doubt about it, they say they need the time to do that, guys.
Okay, Gio, thanks very much.
Also, new developments tonight in the 5G rollout here in the U.S. Amid that concern, the new cell phone signal could interfere with airplanes. Tonight at some airports, the FAA now issuing new approvals for planes to land in low visibility conditions using the current technology on those planes. ABC's Gio Benitez again tonight covering aviation.
Tonight, new progress in the standoff over more powerful 5G signals near airports that airline and air cargo CEOs have warned could lead to catastrophic travel and shipping disruptions. The FAA now clearing nearly 80% of all commercial jets to land in low visibility with current 5G limits in place, including many of the most commonly used Boeing and Airbus airliners like the 737 and A320. The move coming just 48 hours after AT&T and Verizon agreed to keep their upgraded signals 2 miles away from major airports.
This is just a Band-Aid fix. The FAA needs to come up with a permanent solution.
The standoff over concerns that stronger 5G signals could interfere with a plane's radio altimeter, the device pilots use to measure altitude during landings, especially in bad weather with low visibility. Airlines and the FAA have said more safety tests are needed. But the FCC, which regulates 5G, has claimed the service poses no risk to aviation. The FAA is still working on clearing about 20% of plane models, mostly smaller regional jets that make up nearly half of all flights in America.
The fact that we had good weather yesterday was very good for those passengers traveling, but we can't count on that going forward.
And David, tonight, international flights are back up and running after much confusion, and talks over that 5G rollout are ongoing.
Next week, the wireless industry will roll out 5G service designed to provide much faster internet. But the FAA is concerned how that might impact airplane safety systems. It's become a battle between the industry's regulators, and the fallout could cause massive flight cancellations for travelers. CBS's Chris Van Cleave reports.
A standoff between two federal agencies could have flight-halting consequences for airlines caught in the middle. Starting January 5th, U.S. airlines may have to stop using equipment that helps pilots land in bad weather or low visibility at more than 40 of the nation's busiest airports, following an FAA order prompted by concerns about possible interference from newly activated 5G cell phone towers.
5G is now the biggest issue facing the airline industry, which is remarkable to say in a world where we're still in COVID.
United CEO Scott Kirby says airlines have no choice but to adhere to the FAA order.
If we go back to decades-old procedures and technology for flying airplanes, cancel thousands of flights per day and hundreds of thousands of customers, it will be a catastrophic failure of government.
This is a sweeping outage. We want to get right to NBC's Tom Costello, who covers aviation for us. Tom, what do we know? How many flights do we think are impacted here?
Well, at the moment, we've got more than 1,100 flight delays, and at the moment, about 95 or so cancellations. That may change through the morning. Here's what we know. This is the computer system that's called NOTAM, it used to be called Notice to Airmen. Now it's called Notice of Air Missions. And the bottom line is, this is the computer system that pilots rely on to find out the latest information from the FAA on air safety, for example, on whether a runway is closed or perhaps airspace is closed because of military military operations or a rocket launch. That system went down this morning. The FAA has been trying to get it back up, rebooting the system piece by piece. They say that they are making progress, but at the moment still, this NOTAM computer system is not up and running at full capacity. And as a result, the ripple effect across the country is that flights are right now, some are taking off, but for the most part, many airlines, United, for example, says that it is simply not going to allow flights to depart right now because it needs this computer system up in terms of safety. You don't want pilots flying into an airport if, for example, a runway is shut down, for example, or there are particular safety advisories. So at the moment, that has slowed operations. It has not completely stopped operations. You can see we do see planes on the ramp moving on the tarmac there at LaGuardia. This will probably, though, even if they get the system up and running quickly, this will likely have an impact throughout the day. As you know, these things kind of cascade. The good news is, for the most part, the weather across the country right now, except in the Pacific Northwest, is really not a big factor. We can tell you the flights coming into the United States from Amsterdam, from Gatwick in London, also from Frankfurt, they are still inbound as we checked with those particular airports and those flight operations. But this is all about the notice to airmen. Again, notice to air missions. They recently changed that. And as a result, this system, which is critical to air safety, is right now in sort of a hiccup stage. By the way, you may recall that they had a similar problem affecting only air traffic in Florida. This was back on January 2nd, the most, or one of the busiest travel days of the holiday season. And Florida air traffic ground to a halt for several hours because of a computer problem.
Sorry, just real quick before I let you go, I know you want to report it out a little bit more, but is it just flights can't take off, or can they not land either? Because we saw all those flights in the air.
Yeah, if you're inbound, they're certainly going to allow flights to land, and then presumably you would have the controller tell the pilot, be advised, this particular runway may be closed, just to reiterate what the knowledge they should already have. But they don't have that real-time information in front of them in the cockpit.
All right, Tom Costello, going to be a difficult day at our airports. Thank you very much. Keep us updated.
Breaking news in the deadly plane crash investigation. Overnight, the black boxes were found after a passenger jet heading to a popular tourist spot went down in Nepal that killed at least 68 people. Britt Clinton has the latest for us. Good morning, Britt.
Good morning, Robin. Well, those black boxes now found could offer vital clues as to what caused that fatal plane crash in Pokhara about 80 miles from here. A local official telling us the search operation is exceptionally difficult because the crash site is so deep and so narrow. And sadly, that official telling us they've given up hope of finding anyone alive.
Overnight, the black boxes recovered. Searchers locating the cockpit voice recorder and flight data from this passenger plane that crashed into a gorge Sunday, killing at least 68 of the 72 people on board. The two-engine ATR, operated by Nepal's Yeti Airlines, took off from the capital of Kathmandu for what was meant to be a half-hour flight. But just a mile or so before its intended landing, you can see the twin-turbo prop bank sharply in a clear blue sky just moments before you hear a loud boom. Then faint screams. The European-manufactured plane was 15 years old. According to the flight tracking website Flight Radar 24, its transponder failed to transmit reliable data. The last signal sent was received at 10:57 a.m., about 18 minutes after takeoff.
According to the flight tracking website Flight Radar 24, its transponder failed to transmit reliable data. The last signal sent was received at 10:57 a.m., about 18 minutes after takeoff.